7 on Your Side has confirmed the closure of 7 auto dealerships in 2 Bay Area cities. The closures have left anxious customers.
A large Tampa car dealership abruptly closed its doors today, leaving already frustrated customers wondering what to do next.
Across the country, car dealerships are entering a quiet freefall. What used to be a predictable system, build cars, send them to lots, sell them with financing, has hit a wall. Dealerships are filled with unsold inventory month after month, and even drastic discounts can't move the metal. In some cities, brand new luxury vehicles are being listed at 70 to 80% off, and still, buyers are walking away. It's not just a matter of high interest rates or inflation. Something deeper is going on. For years, the auto industry relied on a basic assumption that Americans would always want newer cars, that every few years they'd trade in their old one for something flashier, more powerful, more high-tech. That assumption is collapsing. Buyers are no longer seeing value in what modern vehicles offer. People aren't just hesitant, they're actively avoiding the purchase. Even free isn't cheap enough if the maintenance, insurance, and complexity of ownership feel like a trap. At the heart of the crisis is a mismatch. Automakers are building complex, expensive vehicles filled with technology. Dealerships are financing and pushing them with the same aggressive techniques that worked in the past. But consumers? They've changed. They're keeping their old cars longer. They're questioning the need for new features. And in growing numbers, they're walking away from the dealership model altogether. The silence inside showrooms isn't just about slow foot traffic. It's a signal of a massive shift in consumer behavior, one that could bring the traditional car dealership model to its knees. If you want to understand what's really happening, not just for the industry, but for your own financial future, make sure to subscribe. For decades, new cars were a symbol of progress. Getting a newer model meant more status, better features, greater safety, and a sense that you were moving forward in life. But today, that perception is crumbling, and fast. The average American car buyer is no longer excited by what's on offer. They're skeptical, even cynical. When presented with new vehicles filled with giant touchscreens, complex electronic systems, and monthly payments north of $800, their reaction isn't wow, it's why. That why is at the heart of a massive behavioral shift. It's not just that prices are high, it's that many people no longer believe the product is worth it. Consumers are looking at new cars and seeing machines that are harder to maintain, more expensive to insure, and more likely to fail in ways they can't predict or fix themselves. A vehicle might have 600 horsepower, but if it also needs $3,000 in maintenance every year, premium fuel, and proprietary software updates just to keep running, it starts to feel more like a burden than a badge of success. And this isn't just anecdotal. Surveys and reliability data tell the same story. Advanced infotainment systems are now among the most common failure points in new vehicles. Software glitches, sensor errors, and electronic failures aren't rare. They're becoming routine. People who just want something simple and dependable are now faced with options that are anything but. Even a basic repair might require dealership service, specialized tools, or a software reset that costs hundreds of dollars. That's not peace of mind. That's a trap. Then there's the total cost of ownership. Consumers aren't just looking at the sticker price anymore. They're calculating the real expense. Payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, depreciation. It adds up fast. For many families, owning a new car now eats up 20 to 30% of their take-home pay. And for what? The average annual mileage is dropping as more people work from home, bike, or use ride-sharing. People are realizing they're paying thousands every year to move a vehicle that sits unused 95% of the time. This is the disconnect that automakers and dealerships are struggling to grasp. They're trying to sell vehicles based on performance, prestige, and cutting-edge tech. But the modern buyer wants reliability, simplicity, and financial sanity. They want a car they can trust, not one that needs a software update to unlock the air conditioning. And when presented with that choice, more and more are deciding to hold on to their older cars or skip ownership altogether. The result? Showrooms full of inventory no one wants, cars that can't be given away, and a dealership model built on assumptions that no longer hold true. If you walk through a dealership lot early in the morning before it opens, it might look peaceful. Rows of gleaming cars, spotless windshields, showroom lighting warming up. But that stillness comes with a massive price tag. Every single car you see is costing that dealership money just to exist on the lot. This is the hidden engine behind the growing panic: floor plan financing. Most dealers don't own the cars they sell outright. They borrow money, often millions, from lenders to stock their inventory. In return, they pay daily interest on each vehicle. That means every day a car sits unsold, it drains their balance sheet. For an average dealership, this can amount to tens of thousands of dollars a day in interest alone. And in today's economy, where rates have skyrocketed from around 3% to over 11%, the numbers get brutal fast. A vehicle that costs $60,000 to stock might rack up $15,000 in interest by the time it's sold, if it ever sells. Now, multiply that by hundreds of units. What looks like a well-stocked dealership is often a financial time bomb. Some dealers are now spending $5 to $7 million a year just to hold inventory that nobody wants. And as sales plummet, that inventory doesn't shrink. It just ages. Cars sit for months, then a year, sometimes longer. They start to break down, not from use, but from disuse. Dead batteries, sun-damaged paint, brittle rubber seals, flat-spotted tires. These aren't showroom-quality machines anymore. They're deteriorating liabilities. To stop the financial bleeding, dealerships are turning to increasingly desperate tactics. Some are dumping vehicles through online marketplaces, listing luxury cars on Craigslist or Facebook under fake private seller profiles to avoid brand damage. Others are quietly selling to wholesalers at massive losses just to free up credit lines. A few are even offering negative equity deals, where they absorb a buyer's old car loan just to get inventory off the books. This isn't sustainable. It's damage control. It's triage. And it's the strongest signal yet that the old way of doing business is collapsing under its own weight. When a dealership is losing $8,000 a day just keeping the lights on, and buyers are walking away even when offered steep discounts, something fundamental has broken. The financial model of automotive retail was built on consistent turnover. Cars come in, cars go out, the dealer makes a margin, and everyone moves on. But now the system is clogged. Cars aren't going out, and the longer they sit, the more they cost. Dealers are trapped in a cycle of rising expenses and falling demand with no clear way out. There's a tipping point in any business where the product becomes so misaligned with consumer needs that price no longer matters. That's where the car industry is now. Dealers across the country have reached a surreal moment. They're offering vehicles at prices so low they seem fictional, and still, buyers are saying no. Take the case of a Cadillac dealership in Texas that recently offered a brand new Escalade to a longtime customer for less than the cost of a used sedan. They even paid off the customer's old car loan, one where the remaining balance was $17,000 higher than the truck's current value, just to make the deal happen. The dealership lost over $70,000 in the process, but to them, it was better than continuing to bleed thousands per month in financing fees while the SUV sat collecting dust. The kicker? 3 weeks later, the buyer returned it. Not because of any mechanical defect, but because he couldn't afford the insurance and maintenance. Let that sink in. Someone was handed a nearly free luxury SUV and still couldn't justify keeping it. Why? Because the total cost of ownership, fuel, insurance, repairs, premium parts was just too much. This isn't an isolated incident. More and more buyers are waking up to the realization that the real burden of owning a new car isn't the purchase price, it's everything that comes after. And then there are the brand issues. Some dealerships are now doing everything possible to hide the nameplates on certain cars just to get people in the door. At a Chrysler dealership in Arizona, they've started advertising cars as premium V8 sedans, instead of calling them what they are: Chrysler 300s. They angle the photos to crop out the badges and bury the manufacturer name deep in the listing details. It's a tactic they never would have considered 10 years ago, but today, it's one of the only ways to spark interest. Even the manufacturers themselves are waving the white flag. One major automaker recently offered to buy back unsold inventory from its dealers at less than half the original value, just to reduce exposure to a brand they know is losing relevance. When the companies building the cars no longer believe in their own ability to sell them, you know something deeper is wrong. What we're seeing is a consumer rebellion, not just against the overpriced vehicles, but against the entire concept of modern car ownership. People aren't just asking, "Can I afford this?" They're asking, "Do I even want this?" And more often than not, the answer is no. While dealerships scramble to offload inventory and manufacturers attempt damage control, millions of Americans are quietly making a different decision, one that's reshaping the future of transportation in real time. They're opting out, not just of buying new cars, but of the entire structure that has defined vehicle ownership for generations. And they're doing it with surprising confidence. Take Jennifer, a nurse in Arizona who drives a 2014 Honda Accord with nearly 190,000 miles. It's not flashy. The paint's faded. The AC compressor is on its last legs. By traditional standards, it's time for an upgrade. But she's not even looking. Why? Because, as she puts it, "I can fix anything on this car for under $1,500. Why would I trade that for an $800 monthly payment and a car I don't trust?" This mindset is spreading. It's not driven by poverty or lack of credit. It's driven by logic. Older cars, even with their quirks, offer something most new vehicles don't: predictability. Repairs are manageable. Parts are accessible. There are no subscriptions for features, no broken infotainment systems, no software updates that lock you out of basic functions. And beyond that, people are rethinking whether they even need a car at all. The rise of remote work, e-bikes, public transportation, and car-sharing platforms has created real alternatives. Why spend tens of thousands on a vehicle you only use a few times a week? E-bike sales have tripled. Car-sharing membership is exploding. For many, it's no longer about ownership. It's about access. Meanwhile, consumers are becoming far more informed. They know how often certain cars break down. They understand the real cost of ownership. They're reading reliability studies, watching service cost comparisons, and sharing horror stories on forums and social media. In short, they're not falling for the illusion that new means better. In fact, satisfaction data now shows that owners of 10-year-old vehicles report higher overall happiness than people who just bought something brand new. This is the truth the industry doesn't want to face. Consumers are no longer behaving the way they're supposed to. The old system, build complex cars, finance them aggressively, trap buyers with service costs, is breaking down. People want freedom, simplicity, and reliability. Not Bluetooth-enabled stress machines that bankrupt them by the third oil change. And as this consumer rebellion grows, the effects will be seismic. Analysts predict that by 2026, over a third of U.S. dealerships may close or be absorbed. What remains won't resemble the past. Showrooms will shrink. Inventories will be smaller. The focus will shift toward used vehicles, mobile service, and online transactions. The age of the traditional dealership is ending, and the next chapter is being written by the very consumers who used to keep it alive. If you've made it this far, one thing is clear: you're not just a shopper anymore. You're a strategist. You see through the noise, and you're looking for value that actually makes sense. We'll keep bringing you the facts, the data, and the stories the industry wants to bury. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. The car market is changing fast, and staying informed might just save you thousands.